When the police forced open the narrow door of the cabinet at number 52 Bayou Road, what they found was a vision of hell. A mother, gaunt, her hair matted with blood. 3 children, all hollow-eyed, shivering, their small bodies covered in bruises and sores. The air was rancid, heavy with sweat, filth, and fear. For 6 weeks, they had been locked in darkness, beaten, starved, humiliated. And the person behind it all was not a stranger breaking in from the night, but someone who lived under that very roof. Her name was Pauline, and this is the story of how she turned a New Orleans home into a prison. Neighbors had heard the screams. A washerwoman told of watching Pauline drag the mistress by her hair, cursing her, forcing the mistress's own daughter to hand her a cane, then using it to lash their mother across the face. The children were punished for stolen crumbs, forced to kneel for hours on broken brick until their knees bled. Each day, more blows. Each night, more terror. And all of this began the moment their father, the master, left town. He left his wife. He left his children. He left his enslaved lover, pregnant with his child, with money, authority, and complete control of the household. Pauline stepped into power, and she used it to destroy the woman who had stood in her way. But this story is not simple, because behind Pauline's brutality lurks a deeper shadow. Her lover and master, Peter Rabbeneck, was already a violent man, known to beat his wife, to call her insane, to turn a blind eye as cruelty consumed his home. And some say Pauline's strength came not only from her lover's whispers, but from the charms and gree-gree of a man feared across the city, a conjurer the people called Voodoo John. Was this a crime of passion? A slave's revenge against her mistress? Or the tragic consequence of a system that enslaved, exploited, and corrupted everyone it touched? This is the forgotten case of Pauline, the woman who held her mistress hostage, and the voodoo legend who may have stood by her side. Hey everyone, welcome back to Papa Seer's YouTube channel. If you love diving into captivating stories about hoodoo history, Black American spirituality, and so much more, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so you always know whenever I post a new video. I'll give you a moment right now to go ahead and hit like and also subscribe. Welcome back. It is me, Papa Seer, host, narrator, storyteller of the #1 hoodoo and spirituality based podcast, the Hoodoo and Chill podcast, here with one of my most chilling stories to break down to date, the story of Pauline and Voodoo John. Well, his alleged involvement in the story of Pauline. Trigger warning to those of you all who are sensitive to certain topics. This story does contain some domestic instances. If you pick up what I'm putting down, you know YouTube wants us to remain family friendly when we say certain things. So that is my trigger warning, because I am going to jump right into this. January 14th, 1845, the mayor of New Orleans, as well as the police, arrived at 52 Bayou Road. They received an anonymous tip that the mistress of the house is being held hostage by her enslaved servant, a woman by the name of Pauline. So the mayor and the police arrive at the home. They break in, obviously, because they are probable cause. Something's going on here. And when they open the door to what they describe as a cabinet, this is the literal word of how they describe where they find the mistress and her children in a cabinet. A cabinet where Pauline was staying. The scene is horrific. The wife is covered from head to toe in bruises, ulcers, lacerations. It's obvious that this woman has been beat. It's obvious that someone was basically torturing this woman, but it's not just her. There are 3 children, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, all of which have sustained the same injuries. The least who has the least injuries is the 2-year-old. But still, there are signs and evidence that even the 2-year-old has been abused. They immediately begin to question Mrs. Rabbeneck. She's obviously shaken up. She's traumatized, extreme PTSD. And she says that her husband was the one who assaulted her and put her in this cabinet. In the room is Pauline, and she's looking over at the wife and the children. And the mayor senses something is off. He can obviously tell that the wife is in fear of Pauline, so they have her escorted out. And the moment she leaves the room, the wife just lets out everything. She starts telling the story about how they've been locked in this cabinet for over a month, that her husband has been gone for approximately 6 weeks, and that every day she and her children have been subjected to these horrendous beatings, and they were basically being almost starved. The food wasn't adequate. So you can only imagine the look on the mayor's face, the police, and what is running through everyone's mind that this could even happen, that a slave woman, a woman, okay, but an enslaved woman would be so brazen to do something this horrendous or even just have the audacity. Everyone there is just dumbfounded. No one can really understand how or why this is happening. Mrs. Rabbeneck continues with her story, and she admits that she is aware that Pauline and her husband had been intimate with each other for over 2 years. And because of that, she and her husband had been having these really vicious fights, and he was attacking her verbally and physically because she was confronting him about his relationship with Pauline. So you can imagine that once the neighbor hears this, once the police hear this, Pauline is automatically taken into custody. She's thrown under the jail. Pauline wasn't originally from New Orleans. She was from Virginia. And they say not only was she from Virginia, she once was the property of the President James Monroe. So this was a woman, obviously, who had been birthed into the horrendous society and culture of American chattel slavery. This is where things get interesting. While she's there, this is where she comes into contact with Mr. Rabbeneck. He has been employed as an overseer on this plantation. My theory is that this is where the relationship began. Obviously, when we go into the historical records of this story, this is very much a true story. When we go into the historical records, it states that he was sent away from the plantation into the city. It doesn't say his job ended or the specifics, but the word, the literal word is he was sent away into the city. When he left, however, he purchases Pauline and he takes her with him. Their relationship began on this Frenchman's plantation. And again, my theory is that the plantation owner found out that these two were engaging, or he was the R word, her, because she can't consent. She's enslaved. He gets upset because I'm paying you to watch over things, not to do this, and not with her, oh God, I can't even put myself in the mindset to say like you own someone, but I'm trying my best. You all work with me. I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of this back in those days. But he's upset. He's like, I'm paying you to work for me, not to R word my property. You can purchase her from me, and then you two can leave. And that's what he does. He purchases her from the French planter, and they leave. They go into New Orleans. He rents a duplex, and that's where her new life begins. But according to Mr. Rabbeneck, that this isn't what happens. This is not what he says to his neighbors. He says that his wife is half insane and that it's her fault that their fourth child, or their first child, because they originally had four, their first child passed away. He blames it on the wife. He says that she is insane or have demented, that the child starved their self under her watch. I don't believe this man at all. I just want you all to know that I don't believe a thing that comes out of this man's mouth. I think that he had something to do with that child's passing and blamed it on the wife. Because how does a child die of starvation in a home of two parents unless you both are just being negligent? Something was off with that story. But that element is also important here because according to the neighbors and everyone around him, he and the wife did not get along. He didn't like her. He did not speak highly of her. The story was that, hey, she's crazy. Don't believe anything that comes out of her mouth. Just really painting a picture about who she is to everyone around. And I want you all to put your mind back into 1845. Like, women don't have rights. Black people don't have rights. This is truly a white man's world. The flip side of this is that while he's speaking so poorly of his wife, everyone notices that he and Pauline have a special relationship, that he dotes on her, he favors her. It is pretty obvious that he and her are in love, or he is in love with her. This is the account of the neighbors, that it was obvious that Mr. Rabbeneck was in love with his servant. So you can imagine the tension that's in this house. That, like, this is not a peaceful place to live for anyone. The wife is on edge. She's upset. She's walking around pissed off because they don't live on a plantation, you all. And see, this is why this story is so intriguing, because it really does open up a different light that I don't think a lot of people have when it comes to just how many layers there were to American slavery. Everyone wasn't on a plantation. They weren't on a plantation. They weren't a rich family. They had one servant and they were living in a duplex. And it obviously wasn't that large because she was living in what they described as a cabinet. So they're living in this small confinement together, and the wife is aware that they have a relationship going on, or he has a one-sided relationship going on with her. It's hard for me to say that, you all, and a lot of you all are not going to agree with me, because you all are going to say, because of her situation about being enslaved. And I do agree with that. But Pauline is going to have to take at least some bit of accountability too. We will talk about that later. But anyway, so this is not a good environment. Wife is upset. And I believe that she was making life hell for Pauline. I'm not going to act like this mistress was innocent. I believe she was making life hell for her. I honestly believe it was her idea to make this grown woman sleep in that cabinet too. I believe that. Like, you're going to sleep in there so you can be away from my husband. Honestly, that kind of makes sense. Like, that was the type of stuff that they would do to Black people during those times. So what do you all think in the comments? Like, is the wife innocent here? Are we showing her any empathy? Do we show her any grace? Do you all have any type of like grace for the wife in this moment, or at all? Maybe not now, but maybe later on in the story. Let's keep going, because we have so many things to uncover with this story. They're arguing in the home, the wife and the husband. He is putting his hands on her. That's also a known fact. I have a theory that this man was a bit of a sadist, or a bit of a sadist. It wasn't just him putting hands on the wife. It was also Pauline. The neighbors made accounts of hearing and even witnessing Pauline talk to her, curse her. They didn't see her hit her, but they often heard her yelling at her and cursing her. This is just unheard of during this time for a slave, a woman at that, to yell and curse at her white mistress. This is so far beyond the behavior that is expected of Black people, especially an enslaved Black person in New Orleans during a time when all Black people are living under the Black Code. I want you all to remember that the Black Code is in full effect in 1845, and that is going to play a heavy weight on her sentencing later once she is caught by the police. I believe that he was making her put hands on the wife because he enjoyed watching it. I truly believe that when he brought her into that house, that he was already sick in the head, and he really warped her into becoming what he wanted her to be, as far as taking part in torturing his wife. But let's move on. Where does Dr. John come into play in all of this? Well, fun fact, Dr. John's home stood on Bayou Road between Pryor and Roman Streets. Pauline lived on the same road at number 52. Pauline and Dr. John, aka Voodoo John, They live within 7 to 8 blocks of each other. Are no court records that prove that they met. However, proximity tells a lot. The folklore and the rumors on the streets of New Orleans was that Pauline had gone to see Dr. John to get a love powder and a gree bag that she wanted to use on Peter. It is said that he helped her out. She went back to her home and laid the trick. So for those of you that don't know about Voodoo John or Dr. John, obviously I'm going to have to do a video on him. Dr. John is mainly accredited for being the person to really bring and organize New Orleans voodoo as, really bring it in as what it is today. He was a Senegalese prince from Africa. One of his trademarks was the fact that this man bore tribal scars on his face. He was the best conjure doctor, voodoo doctor in town. So she goes to see Voodoo John, so the legend says, or so the streets say, and she goes back to the house. She applies the powder. She has her nation sack or her gree bag with her, and she is working this charm on the husband. I truly believe that this is 100% true for two reasons. One, the proximity. I mean, why wouldn't she? If you knew you could have went to him to get something that was going to help you out, there wouldn't have been any reason why she wouldn't have gone to see him if she knew she could have benefited from this man. And he was so close to her. My other reason is what happens next. Peter, the husband, has to go on a trip to St. Louis. So he's taking a boat up the Mississippi to go on business in St. Louis, Missouri. And he's going to be gone for a while. When he leaves Pauline in charge of the wife, the kids. And that isn't so uncommon. There were trusted house servants, even slaves, who were put in sort of caregiver roles. But here is where I just, my eyes just bulge out of my head with this story every time. He leaves her with $200 in cash. He leaves as a woman who's supposed to be enslaved to him, a piece of property, with $200 in cash. Now, it doesn't matter how loyal you might think she is. That's a lot of money during that time, and more than enough for her to escape and get away from this. It's either one or two things. Either Pauline was developing feelings for this man, and I think that will really dismantle a lot of thoughts that we have about master-slave relationships, or it just goes to show you how delicate the mind is and how this man had really just disturbed this woman's mind. I'm gonna go with the latter, in my opinion. I think that he's taken her off this plantation. He's having relations with her. He has her involved in his sick game of beating this wife and torturing her because it's some weird pleasure thing for him. And then he's dangling freedom over in front of her face, probably telling her all kinds of things like, when I get back, we're going to do this and I'm going to marry you. I can just hear it, just all of the things lies he was just feeding into this woman's fragile mind at that time. Just very fragile. She was only in her 20s too. So I want that to be, she was only in her 20s, like maybe 26 to 28. She wasn't that old. What do you all think? This is my next question right here. Like, why do you think she stayed? Why do you think She didn't take the money and immediately just leave. What do you think made her stay? So the records say that immediately when Peter Rabbeneck left, she turns into this monster and she locks the wife into the cabinet. It's just no turning back from there. We all know what happens from there. She starts beating her and what have you. So we can believe that if you choose to. Yes, that is what happened, but is that really what happened? My theory is that they got into some type of argument first. Some type of altercation happened. So I can just imagine that as soon as he left, the little nitpicking but there's also another layer to this too that I think is the reason what might have triggered some things with Pauline. She was pregnant. When he left, she was pregnant. Who's to say that the wife didn't attack her? And maybe out of defense for her and her child, she locked the woman in the closet to protect her baby. Who knows? But I do think for a fact that some type of altercation happened. Does not make it right, and I'm not condoning the behavior. I'm just giving my theory on what I think happened, because if you all were to go read the stories or find any of the articles or the actual newspapers, there are so many holes in this story that you read it and it's like you can believe the sensationalism of this because the majority of the writers, I said writers. Ironic. The majority of the writers were white, and a lot of them were writing with very, very racist mindsets. I mean, there's just very horrible, some of the words that they used to describe this woman in the local newspaper. So I don't tend to believe everything that comes from sensationalist journalism. I try to form my own opinion. And my opinion is that something triggered her, something triggered the situation, and it just really went overboard. I don't think that the kids should have been involved in any way. It wasn't until when Pauline hired a woman, another slave who washed clothes, to come to the home to wash clothes for her when she got caught. So the story goes, when this other slave woman, her name was Dina, came to the house to wash clothes, she witnessed Pauline beating the mistress with her fist, pulling her by the hair, cursing her out, calling her all types of names. She even said that Pauline made the little girl grab a stick and hand it to her so then she could start, hitting the mom over the face with it. She did all of this in front of the other slave woman that was there. This traumatized Dina. She's like, oh my gosh, like I can end up in jail because of what you're doing over here. Goes and tells her master when she gets back home what she saw going on at 52 Bayou Road. Her master then writes an anonymous letter to the governor, letting him know what his slave had told him, what was going on at the address. So the governor, immediately, they get the police. They have to go inspect because, this is crazy. This is unheard of. We have to go just, do a wellness check, make sure everything is fine. And when they get there, he finds the wife and the children in the worst conditions that, they ever could have been in. Dina even opens up about how while she was at the home, a biscuit had been missing from the table, and Pauline blamed the oldest child and made the oldest child kneel on broken bricks for hours. They waste no time taking Pauline into custody and into court for trial. And she is tried under the Black Code of New Orleans at the time, which states that if a person of color, enslaved or not, raises a hand to a white person and draws blood, they can be punished by death or by imprisonment of 10 years or more. The mayor wants to make an example of Pauline, and he's not trying to hear of any type of prison time. It's an immediate death sentence. Unanimous amongst the entire jury, the entire council. Everyone wants to see this woman hung on the gallows. The only thing that saves Pauline or buys her some time is the fact that she is pregnant. She's incarcerated for over a year, so to give her time to have the child, and then they will see through with her death sentence. Some reports state that she lied about her pregnancy, that there was no baby at all, which I believe is a lie. She was very much pregnant when they came to that house. Very much pregnant. Now, what happened between the time while she was in custody, that's up in the air. Because 9 times out of 10, just in the conditions she was put in the jail of the parish, she probably had a miscarriage. Or if she did deliver the baby would have been taken from her immediately and sold, because babies were very valuable at that time when it came to, slavery, unfortunately. That is such a horrible thing to even think about. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, they probably took her baby from her immediately and the child was sold into slavery. On the day of her execution, they use it as a entertainment spectacle. Back in those days, unfortunately, here in America, executions were public spectacles, almost like a mini carnival. And that's how the scene was described at Pauline's execution. They said there was at least, at minimum, 4,000 to 5,000 people there, all sorts of festivities. They were, selling food, and there was vendors. They truly made a spectacle out of this, because she was not only the first person to be executed under the Black Code in New Orleans, but she was the first woman to be publicly executed, period, in New Orleans at that time. Pauline is described as solemn, that she's, she holds her head up with pride, that even through all of this, there's some stoic dignity about her. When she was taken up to be hung on the gallows, when they released the contrivance from the feet, and when she dropped, her neck did not break. I think that the executioner did that on purpose, that they didn't want her to die instantly. She struggled, some say 4 to 5 minutes. Some people say it took up to 20 minutes before she was off of that rope. She was just left there to dangle and hang. I don't think that was ironic at all. I believe that they did that on purpose, because they knew that she was going to struggle. The father of her child, and the real culprit in all of this, was nowhere to be found or even mentioned of during all of this. The trial, the execution, it's almost as if he just disappears. He was never heard from again and basically lived in disgrace. My belief is that he locked the wife in the closet or the cabinet before he left. I can just see them having a horrible argument, He's already horrible and probably pushed her into that closet or beat her into that closet, woke Pauline up. You get out, put her in, and left and said, "You watch her until I get back." And the children heard all of the commotion. He was probably in a rage, probably pushed his own children in there and said, "You watch her until I get back." Something is off with this. I don't think that she even would have had enough power on her own to put that woman and those 3 kids in there by herself. Even a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old knows how to fight back and will when it comes to their mom. I believe it was the husband. He threw her in there and told Pauline, "You watch her until I get back," and probably hoped that she would have passed away in the closet and he was going to stay away long enough just so that he could blame it on Pauline. I wonder if there was an insurance policy on the wife and the children as well. So many holes, so many layers to this story. I'll wrap this up with, there were no winners here. This was just truly a tragic story on all ends. And it's unfortunate that just, some stories are just like that sometimes, and some events are just like that. I don't think Pauline, I think she got her peace when she passed away, but just her entire life was tragic. Just her being used as a pawn is what ultimately led to her demise. I do have a little bit of grace for the wife, or some type of grace for the wife, because your children were involved, and children don't have anything to do with anything, regardless of anything. They're children. And to have to watch that happen to your children, whether it be at the hands of their father or the hands of somebody else, is traumatic on its own. And I can see a person just shutting down, having to bear witness to something like that. I don't think I would ever be the same again either. So I'm human, and I am going to offer her grace there too, regardless if she was the slave owning mistress or whatever. Children are children. Again, like I said, you all, this is a heavy one, but still very intriguing, very entertaining, a lot going on here. And I want to know what you all think too. What is your opinion on this story? What should have changed? What should have happened? Who do you think is the real culprit? Do you truly believe that Pauline was just as evil as they say? Or was she just a victim of circumstance as well as journalistic propaganda? I want to know from you all. Again, I'm Papa Seer. I love this. I love what I do. And I'll see you all in my next video.